Good morning, everyone. Leah Dixon here from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. I am joining you live this morning. This is my regular Wednesday morning Facebook Live, and I always pop on around 9-ish. I'd love to say I'd be on at 9, but technology just never seems to cooperate with me, so it always takes me a few minutes. But I am here now, and I'm going to be making actually 2 cards with you today using the Adorning Designs Decorative Masks. That is hard to say quickly. So I am going to switch over to my desktop so that you can see these masks. Sorry, there is a lot of light on my desktop right now, so hopefully it's not causing too much of a problem for viewing these. So in the Adorning Designs Decorative Masks, we actually get 4 designs. So we have this really cool, it's actually 4 little rounded, not really rounded, but 4 little squarish shapes that go together to make these awesome diamonds. They are just beautiful. We have this really fun, like gingerbread decorative border. The absolutely gorgeous snowflakes, and some stripes. So we've got those as well. So it's actually the stripes and the snowflakes that I'm going to be using today for the 2 cards. And then I've already posted some stuff using these 2, and I'll be posting some more with those ones. So I'm just going to set those ones off to the side. And we're actually going to get started with kind of our more complicated card this morning. And the reason it's more complicated is because instead of just using blending brushes, I am actually going to be using embossing paste with this folder. So this is our shimmery white embossing paste. We also have regular white. You can add color to these and create some really beautiful things as well. Today I'm just going to be using it straight up as shimmery white. And the first thing I wanted to share with you is that I had not used mine in quite some time, probably a year actually, probably since last Christmas. And so when I opened it up, it was actually all dried out. And so all I did is I added some hot water to it and stirred it up, and it completely reconstituted it so that it was ready to use. So it did take a little bit of work, and you don't want to leave any chunks in it. But if yours has dried out, add a little bit of hot water, like almost boiling hot, and just like a little bit at a time. And by a little bit, I mean like a few drops at a time, and just keep working it in until it's come back to the consistency that you would like. Now, while I'm working with this, I actually have a tray of water beside me, because when I am finished, I'm going to want to put my mask straight into water so that the embossing paste doesn't harden onto my mask. And actually for this card, I don't need my base there. So I am going to grab just a piece of scrap paper because this does get a little bit messy. And what I'm going to do is I've got my mask, and the paper that I'm going to be embossing on today is actually a piece of our red velvet paper. So it already has a really nice texture to it, but we're going to add some stripes on here. So I'm going to pop this down onto my table. I'm going to put my mask over top of it and line it up. And then, and what's nice about this is it is diagonal stripes, so it doesn't really, like, there's really no right and wrong in terms of, you know, lining it up and getting those straight. Now, I am going to hold it in place, so you can use masking tape, or you can use washi tape, painter's tape, whatever is going to work for you. So I just happen to have some old washi tape here, so I'm just going to snag a few pieces of that to hold this in place. And if you are on and watching, I'd love to hear from you. It's been a crazy few days with weather again around here in BC. Love to hear how everybody else is doing. Does anybody have snow yet? I shouldn't be wishing for snow. It's the last thing we need here, but I love snow. And so now that I've got that taped down over top of my piece of red velvet, I am going to take this nice big brush. I want a nice edge here. I'm going to come in. I'm just going to give this another quick stir. And then I'm going to put quite a bit onto my palette and just start dragging this across my paper. So it's not sticking where the plastic of my mask is stopping it from touching the paper, and we're just dragging it nicely across. Now I am going to try to go right out to the edges, but I do like to always start with a piece that's bigger than what I want my finished piece to be. Just because the edges do get a little chunky and sometimes they like flake off and stuff, and so I like to be able to trim down the edges on all four sides so that I don't have to rely on having you know, applied it right out to the edges and have a nice clean finish on the edges. I'll get that by trimming it with my paper trimmer later. So I am going over the same spots multiple times, just kind of reapplying, smoothing it out if there's any chunks or spaces. And you do want to try and keep your brush really flat, because otherwise you will kind of gouge in and scrape off extras that you don't want to. If you do, you can just go back and reapply. All right, so and I can also scrape up the extras that are off on the sides and reuse them. Okay. So coming through here. And so this is a paste. It's like kind of like gritty toothpaste that I am spreading across here. So, you know, you do want to kind of push down as you're doing it. Help it adhere to the paper. It will dry on and dry very solidly to the paper, but just to get that initial coat. Okay. There we go. So we're just about done here. I want to make sure that my coats are quite thick because I don't want too much of that red to show through. I don't want pink stripes, I want white stripes. And so just a little bit more. And you'll notice I've only applied once, and then I'm just really spreading it thin across my paper. There we go. A little bit more right there. And so just about done. So I'm just really looking for an even coating as I go, because how it looks right now before I pull this off is how it's going to look afterwards. So that looks like a nice even coating. I'm going to put scrape the rest of this back into my container and put the lid on my container. I'm also going to put my brush directly into the water so that it doesn't harden on there. Now I have heard of some people putting like saran wrap or some kind of like the seal paper over top of this before they close it. But now that I know that I can just add a little bit of water to it, I'm just going to close it up. I'll put it back into its plastic baggie, and that should keep it nice and moist. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do before this dries is I am going to peel off my mask. So I'm starting with taking off my washi tape. There we go. And then I'm going to remove my mask very carefully. There we go. And I'm going to pop it directly into a tray of water so that that doesn't adhere to the mask. All right, now I got my fingers all wet. So just give me a second. I don't want to handle my paper yet with wet fingers. It's a good thing about wearing jeans. You can just dry your hands off. All right. And then before this dries kind of attached to this paper, I am also going to peel it off of that paper. And I'm going to go set it somewhere else to dry. So we're going to let that dry. and work on, well, we're going to work with some TV magic, actually. So I've got that piece, and I've let it dry, and now I've gone and I've trimmed it down. And so voila, this was done this morning, so it really doesn't take very long to dry. I'd say it was about 20 minutes before I felt comfortable handling it and not worried that I was going to smudge it. So I actually trimmed this down to just under 4, like 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. And then I have a piece of cards, and you could have trimmed yours down to 4 by 4 even if you wanted, but I started with a 4-inch piece, so I had to trim mine down slightly. So you could pretend that this is a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of white that I've just grabbed. In fact, it's 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And so it is the same width as my paper, but a little bit of a larger height. And I am going to grab that. I'm also going to grab a piece of scrap paper just because I am going to be stamping off the edges here. And I don't want to get that onto my, my pierce mat. So I am grabbing this, and I am using the little peppermints from the Frosted Gingerbread set. Now, there's actually something I need to tell you about these Adorning Designs masks that I'm using today and this Frosted Gingerbread set, is that they are both on the last chance list that just got released today. So these are items that will be retiring soon, January 2nd to be specific, or when they sell out. So they're only available while supplies last. Very, very sad. This is probably my favorite stamp set from the mini catalog. I have gotten so much use out of this. I find these peppermints so adorable. So I'm taking these tiniest peppermints, and I'm not going to stamp my whole page. You can see I'm stamping actually off the top edge and everything. I am just going to stamp a little border at the top and the bottom of this piece. So I'll flip that around and stamp another little border. So I hope that the video is going okay and that it's not laggy or being strange in any way. It's always so hard to tell on my end. It always looks laggy on my end. All right. So here we go. So I've got that border done, and now I am actually going to grab a second piece of paper. This one is 4 by 5 1/4. I haven't trimmed it down at all. And this is actually going to be for the inside of our card. I'm using a Coastal Cabana base, and I just want a little bit of other color on the inside. And so we're just going to come along. And I'm trying to keep a uniform height on this. So my first stamp that I stamped, I kind of saw how high this could possibly be and used that to set my beginning line. And just trying to keep kind of like a 1-inch border there across the bottom. And so that's going to get glued inside our card. Oh, so Ruth, the paste is embossing paste, and we used it to create some white stripes on a piece of red velvet paper. So now I have a sparkly candy cane red velvet and embossing paste designer series paper to use as our background. So now that's the one that I just did fresh, and so we're not going to play with that one because I've got to let it dry for about 20 minutes. But I have one that I did this morning and then trimmed down to a square size. And we are now going to glue this down on top of this candy cane border. Now, you know me, I like my liquid glue, but this red velvet paper is a little bit thicker and a little bit of a different feel to it. So I want to make sure it's going to stick. So I'm going to actually use in my mind, the best, strongest adhesive we have, which is our Tear and Tape. And I'm going to put that right out along the edge on both sides. And right out along that edge. Bring this one in. Now I do want to make sure that I get right to my corners. That's going to be an important piece. So if I have that little spot, it doesn't matter so much as long as I have my corners done. Because there's nothing worse than having a little corner that flicks up. Okay, so there we go. With that done, I am going to peel off just one of these to start, so that I can get it nicely lined up, and then I'll peel off the other ones. Okay, so one pulled off. Make sure my stripes are going the way I want them to. Oh, don't let that touch yet. And then I want to line it up top to bottom, line it up along the sides. And when I like how that looks, oh no, it touched. I might be stuck with what I got. Nope, I was able to save it, good. Okay, so this is definitely trickier than using liquid glue. Okay, not quite centered, but it's gonna have to be good enough. It's okay. All right, so now that I've got that one adhered and I like where everything is, now I can come back in and peel off the rest of these backings and adhere it. And I know it's going to stick where I want it to stick. I'm going to try and get all three backings peeled off before I let it lay down again. There we go. And then, voila. All right, so that is adhered, and it's, oh, the template on the top to make the stripes, I've actually got it hidden now. It's in a dish of water, but it's our Adorning Designs decorative masks. This is our snowflake one. I used a stripe one before, but it's soaking now because the paste otherwise will harden onto it. And so I didn't want that to happen. Now, if I wasn't stopping to make the whole card, you can reuse the templates. Like, you know, last year I think I did 25 cards before I had to go wash my template. So you can reuse it without washing it in between, as long as you're just like doing one after another. All right, so now that we've got that done, I am going to stamp a sentiment. And I am using a sentiment from that same Frosted Gingerbread kit. I'm using the Wishing You a Merry Christmas, and I'm going to stamp it in Memento Black, just onto a piece of basic white. There we go. And I love this one, the font and everything about it. And then I'm going to punch it out using my everyday label punch. I just like it. It kind of looks like a movie theater ticket almost. Okay, there we go. So we've got that punched out using the everyday label punch. And oh, you guys, you definitely want to check out that last chance list. I put a link to it in the comment section because there's a lot of stuff retiring, you guys. There's punches that we've had forever that are going, and yeah, pretty shocking what is on that list. So you definitely want to check it out, and some great prices as well. All right, so we've got this, and now before I attach this to my card front, I'm going to bring in a little bit more black and white. I'm like putting all the patterns together. We've got plaid, stripes, and random peppermint happening here. So I'm just wrapping that around to see how much I want. Just give a general sense. So this is our black and white gingham ribbon. It is one of my favorite ribbons. And so we're going to start by creating a knot. And you can kind of do that wherever you'd like, because then we can swivel it around. So get the knot that you want, and then just scooch it over. And once it's scooched over, I'm going to tie a little bow. You could tie your bow first too, but I don't want to tempt fate trying to keep my bow straight as I scooch it over. So scooch over your knot, tie your bow, and sometimes you just got to fiddle with these things until they lay right. All right, just a little bit more. Oh, and I am going to have to scooch my bow back a bit. I'm also going to untie that. I don't like how that ended up laying. I think I grabbed the wrong ends. There we go. So I can tie a million of these off screen, no problem. As soon as I'm on screen, there is issues tying bows. There we go. All right, that one laid down much nicer. So that's the joy of having the knot first, and the gingham ribbon works really well for that, is if you tie your knot first and then you don't like your bow, just untie it and try it again, because it's not going anywhere. It's not going to fall off the page or anything. All right, and then we're going to trim up those ends. Oops, come on. There we go. Trim up those ends, and now I am going to scooch that bow back over just a tiny bit so it's fully on my card front. I'm going to grab some dimensionals to attach my sentiment. And I am going to actually put those above and below where my ribbon will lay, so that it doesn't actually touch my ribbon. And pop that on there. And I'm going to just tuck my ribbon behind a bit because I don't want it blocking my sentiment. Now this whole piece I'm going to attach to my card base. I am going to use liquid glue for this. I know that that will be strong enough because this is just basic white, so the hold will be just fine. There we go. Just wipe off the excess. And the card base I'm using is a Coastal Cabana, and it's just a standard card base. 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And now I can kind of wiggle this one around and get it all laying nicely. There we go. Whoops. All right, and then for our finishing touches, I'm actually going to grab, oh, if I can find them, I've got too many little things here. Ah, there we go. We've got our gingerbread and peppermint acrylic shapes. And in here, we actually have, oh, so many things. We actually have these little peppermints. I wonder if I have 2 of those left. These little peppermint swirls. There we go. Oh, I do. Wonderful. I'm just going to put 2 little red peppermint swirls on there. So you can attach these in a few different ways. You could use mini glue dots, but I actually like to use liquid glue because it will end up having a stronger hold. It just means you have to let your card kind of sit to the side for a bit to really dry before you can do anything with it. So I actually put my drop of liquid glue onto my paper. I take my embellishment and place it right on top of that. Oh, thank you, Laura. And then I put my, oops, that's a bit much. Oh well, it'll dry clear. There we go, pop that down. And that is our finished card. So we just have to kind of let that one sit and dry now so that that liquid glue will really hold. So that is, oh, and then I totally forgot. I won't do it now because those are sitting to dry, but we had created this piece to go on the inside of our card. So I will have to glue that in later. Yeah, so that is our first card finished. Now our second card is what I would definitely call simple stamping. It is super duper fast and easy. All you are going to need is a piece of Night of Navy, and this is cut at a normal card base size, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4, and so you're going to create that. And then 2 pieces of basic white, one for the front, one for the inside. So we're going to start with the one for the front, and I'm using another last chance stamp set called Thinking, Thanks, and Peace, and I'm going to use the Peace on Earth stamp. Now this stamp is giant, you guys, which I really love. I love stamps that kind of take up the whole card front. Does all the work for me. So I've grabbed some Night of Navy to go with that Night of Navy base that I've got, and I'm going to ink up this stamp. There we go. And I'm going to try and center this as much as I can on my piece of basic white. There we go. So that is our Night of Navy image. And now I am going to grab my snowflake embossing folder. I'm just going to make sure it's dry. Okay, good. I had rinsed it off earlier. I'm going to grab my snowflake embossing folder. And you guys, I'm not even going to like tape it down or anything. I'm just kind of spinning it around, looking for what I think is going to create the nicest kind of border around this, get me the most snowflakes around my sentiments. And now you can see I am like, I'm putting this right over the sentiment, but when I go to ink this, I'm not going to ink right over the sentiment. All right, I think that's going to give me the nicest look. So the reason I'm not going to even tape this down is because I'm going to be able to hold it where my sentiment is, because I am not going to ink that area when I apply the ink to this. So I'm going to use some balmy blue and a blending brush. So I'm going to get quite a bit of blue onto my blending brush. And then I'm going to hold my sentiment, or hold my mask in place right over top of my sentiment. And I'm just going to start in a circular motion, applying some ink right over top of this mask. Now, if you're worried that your hand's going to slip, you could, of course, glue this down, or not glue it down, but like use washi tape or something to hold it down. And I am coming in quite close to my sentiment, but I'm not coming all the way in, and I'm not going over top of that dub either. All right, just a little bit more ink. Okay, so I'm coming right into the edges of the sentiment, but not onto the sentiment. Okay. Go. All the way around. Okay, just a little bit more here. Just have to do the bottom here of our card. And voila, we have our snowflakes all sponged around that. Now, hi Jacqueline, this is inky now. It has blue ink on it. So you're going to want to put it somewhere where it's not going to get blue ink on things. And to wash it off, I usually just run it under the tap later and take that ink off. You do want to clean it if you're switching up colors. Like if I'm doing other shades of blue, no problem. But if I was going to go do like a yellow now, I'd end up with a green, because that blue that's stuck to the mask would blend in with my yellows. So you definitely want to wash it in between. All right, so we've got that one done. And now I think I'm going to do one more snowflake just on the piece that's going to go inside our card. So I am going to bring back that mask. I am going to find the snowflake I would like. All right, I think I'd like that one. All right, and darn it, I closed up my mat. I closed up my ink. All right, so here we go. So I'm just going to hold that still and in and brush that. There we go. And I got a little bit of the other ones. It's not a big deal. If I had really wanted to make sure that didn't happen, I could have like put washi tape or something over top of it. But I think it's just fine. All right, so we've got that done on the inside, and we can also do our envelope flaps this way. Then the last step is just to glue this together. So I'm going to take my liquid glue again, glue my inside flap in with my little snowflake there. There we go. So I always like to put this white layer into any of my dark cards. It's not essential on your other cards, but on the dark ones, it really makes a difference. And then I'm going to take our sentiment and glue that down to the front. And just two more little finishing touches, just a little bit of bling on here. I'm going to grab my Wink of Stella and just color in my dove. Now you'll notice that it does grab a little bit of the navy and add a little bit of blue tinge to my dove. I think that just adds a little bit of eye-catching, like we'll notice the dove a bit more. So there we go, we've got that on our dove. And then I'm just going to throw a few little rhinestones on here. I don't want anything with color or anything. I don't want to distract from our gorgeous image here, our gorgeous sentiment. So I'm just going to pop a few of those on, and we are done. So that is a really fast but really beautiful card. So if you're one of those people who has way too many Christmas cards to make, this one is definitely a time saver, but still a showstopper. It's just really, really beautiful. And you could get creative with the colors you use on the background for that. So this is just two ways that we can use our, for that messy paper. This is just two ways that we can use our decorative masks. These Adorning design ones are great for Christmas, but they are retiring soon. And then we have some other sets of decorative masks with some other patterns in the catalog. So lots and lots of choices for patterns and fun that you can have with those. So thanks so much for joining me today. I always love my Wednesday morning Facebook Lives and getting to create with you guys. I have put a host code into the description as well. I am giving away little stacks, like 4 or 5 cards of hand-stamped cards made by me to anybody who places an order over $60. If you order early in the month, I will be sending out Christmas cards, because who couldn't use a few extra Christmas cards to send out? And then if you order after, say, the 10th, I'll switch over to kind of more seasonal birthday thank you kind of cards that I send out to people, just because you're not really going to need Christmas cards by the 20th. So yeah, that's about it. Definitely, if there are things in the last chance sale that you're wanting, grab them sooner rather than later, because once they're gone, they're gone. And sometime this week, I will also be sending out my newsletter with all of my upcoming classes and sales and stuff. So lots going on. There is still time to get in on the second round of my birthday card club. So we have our first meeting actually this week, and I finished prepping that. It's all mailed out, and we're meeting this Friday, but we are meeting 5 more times over the next 5 months. So our next meeting will be in January, and we're going to be focusing on the Biggest Wish stamp set. So if you want more detail about joining my birthday card club, give me a call or message me, and I'll send you some information on that. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.